If you do these 5 things alone, your intelligence is rarer than you think. 1. You turn your opinions into predictions. Most people navigate the world using a binary system of belief. Things are going to happen, or they are not. An idea is true, or it is false. When faced with an uncertain future, the average mind seeks the comfort of a definitive opinion. Certainty soothes the nervous system. False certainty does this too. But you do not do this. You might be alone contemplating a decision. You might think about a career shift or a relationship, but you do not deal in absolutes. You deal in gradients. You turn vague opinions into testable, calculated predictions. You do not just say that something will definitely work out. Your internal monologue sounds different. You might say you are 70% confident it will succeed. You add that specific variables must remain stable. This habit is easily misread by others. You might get accused of overthinking. You might get called hesitant. People might say you lack the boldness of conviction. They misinterpret your doubt. It is actually the hallmark of an advanced forecasting mind. You intuitively realize that the world is chaotic. Holding absolute certainty is an illusion. This is not merely a philosophical stance. It is a measurable cognitive skill. General studies about predicting the future show something very important. Learning to think about probabilities helps us make much better choices. Working together with a team and tracking results improves this even more. Everyday experience reveals an interesting truth about our minds. Just one short lesson on careful reasoning dramatically boosts a person's future accuracy. This positive effect lasts for many months. You quietly assign confidence levels to your thoughts. You train your brain to align its internal models with external reality. You refuse the cheap comfort of a guess. You choose the hard work of a calculation. 2. You change your mind when the facts change. Imagine reading an article or reflecting on a conversation. You suddenly realize a core belief you have held for years is fundamentally flawed. For most individuals, this realization triggers an immediate physiological threat response. The ego flares up. The nervous system interprets the loss of a belief as a loss of identity. This leads to defensive posturing and rationalization. People double down on the original incorrect stance. Your internal experience is different. You might feel a brief flash of disorientation. A strange, quiet relief quickly follows this. You update your beliefs without the interference of your ego. You possess the metacognitive capacity to recognize the strict limits of your own knowledge. You actively revise your views the moment new, credible evidence is introduced. This is the beautiful paradox of intellectual humility. The most capable minds are the ones least convinced of their own permanent rightness. Yielding looks like weakness to an outside observer. It is actually an impenetrable defense against delusion. It takes a massive amount of internal security to look at your own foolishness and simply nod in acknowledgement. This quiet habit of self-correction has profound psychological benefits. You have a natural defense against misinformation, and you demand evidence before you say yes to any new information. You are naturally inoculated against the conspiratorial thinking that traps so many others. Intellectual humility also simultaneously increases a person's capacity for genuine learning and discovery. You do not argue to win. You explore to understand. By doing so, you protect your mind from rigid fragility. That fragility eventually breaks most egos. 3. You learn by testing yourself. Human beings naturally gravitate toward the path of least resistance when absorbing new information. This applies to learning a language, mastering a new professional skill, or understanding a complex philosophical concept. The standard approach is passive recognition. This means rereading a text, highlighting sentences, or staring at notes until the material feels familiar. This creates a dangerous illusion of fluency. We confuse the ease of reading with the permanence of knowing. You instinctively reject this comfort when you sit alone to learn. You engage in a practice that feels inherently frustrating. You read, and then you close the book. You stare at a blank wall. You force your brain to reach into the dark and pull the information back out. You wait for the gap. You embrace the cognitive strain of active recall. This is not a punishment. It is the most efficient way the human brain creates meaning. The testing effect is a powerful neurological phenomenon. You are carving deeper neural pathways by forcing your brain to reconstruct the memory. You also intuitively understand the value of letting time pass before you test yourself. Research has shown that repeated testing improves long-term retention significantly. Simply repeatedly studying material after initial learning has almost no effect. Increasing the spacing between your attempts dramatically improves your long-term retention. You make learning intentionally difficult for yourself. You embrace the friction of forgetting and retrieving. You are not just memorizing. You are weaving the information into the very fabric of your long-term cognition. You are building a mind that retains its sharpness long after the textbook is closed. 4. You step back from your emotions. Let us talk about what happens when you are in pain. Emotional distress strikes in the form of a sharp rejection, a sudden failure, or a wave of profound anxiety. The first human response based on instinct is to drown in it. The mind zooms in on the hurt. It obsessively loops through the injustice, or fear. The internal voice screams. It demands to know why this is happening to you and why you feel this way. But you possess a strange coping mechanism. You utilize it when you are completely alone with a heavy emotion. You zoom out. You imagine you are floating near the ceiling. You look down at yourself sitting in the chair. You ask why he is feeling this way. You step completely outside of your own subjective experience. You view your distress from a detached, third-person perspective. People who do not understand this trait might view it as cold or avoidant. They might call it a form of dissociation. It is not. It is a highly adaptive psychological tool known as self-distancing. The Stoics called it the view from above. It is not an escape from the emotion. It is a way of actually processing it without being destroyed by it. You do that by creating enough psychological room. Studies have reported that spontaneous self-distancing actually predicts lower emotional reactivity. It also predicts more constructive, problem-solving behavior. You are short-circuiting the endless loop of anxiety. You lower your own heart rate by stepping away from the self. You transform a consuming emotional flood into a manageable puzzle. You become the compassionate observer of your own life. This allows you to navigate crises with a quiet, steady grace. It leaves others completely baffled. 5. You name your emotions clearly before reacting. The emotional landscape of most people is painted with broad, imprecise strokes. They feel good, bad, mad, sad, or stressed. A wave of negative affect hits them. It is just a dark mass of discomfort. You act differently when you are alone. You sit with an uncomfortable sensation in your chest. You do not settle for simply feeling bad. You sit still. You slice the emotion into its exact microscopic components. You realize that you are not just sad. You name the feeling with absolute uncompromising precision. This is called emotional granularity. It is a breathtakingly powerful trait. Leaning into the nuanced language of pain actually reduces its raw power over you. Individuals who are high in emotional granularity naturally possess better emotion regulation skills. They also demonstrate much higher levels of psychosocial adjustment. The most fascinating aspect of this habit is what it physically does to your brain. Neuroimaging studies have found something important. The simple act of putting precise feelings into words reduces the activation of the amygdala. This is the brain's threat and fear center. You are literally changing the blood flow in your brain by finding the exact right word for your pain. You are cooling the fire of panic with the cold, clear water of language. These 5 habits are not just signs of intelligence. They are the survival mechanisms of a deeply sensitive, highly analytical nervous system. This system is trying to make sense of a chaotic world. There is an inherent loneliness to this kind of mind. It can be exhausting to constantly calibrate. It is tiring to constantly step outside of yourself. You refuse the easy comforts of certainty and illusion. These comforts seem to keep everyone else so warmly insulated. You may often feel like you are speaking a slightly different language than the people around you. You might find yourself exhausted by how easily others accept surface-level answers. Meanwhile, you are instinctively digging for the psychological bedrock. That's courage. You have built a mind that does not flinch at the complex. It handles the contradictory and the uncomfortable. Your mind is doing exactly what it was designed to do.